Good morning and welcome to the Friday Financial Review. I'm Paul Griffiths, Financial Planner for Europe. Today we're going to take a deep look into Assurance Vie. So these are designed very much for those who've decided to relocate to France. So let us begin. What is an Assurance Vie? Translated, life assurance. So an Assurance Vie is a life assurance contract designed for those living in France. But what does it do? What is it used for? What are the benefits and what are the costs? Well, to answer these questions, we need to start at the very, very top. In general, people around the world want to invest their savings, investments, any disposable income they may have. They want to invest it to make their money grow. So first off, an Assurance Vie can be used simply as a wrapper that provides you the means to invest your money across a range of assets. These could be investment funds, investment trusts, individual stocks, shares and bonds. And of course, cash deposits are also investable via Assurance Vies. So that's the first thing to consider, using it as an investment vehicle. No different really than for those who come from the UK, you might have a fund platform or stock brokerage account with Hargreaves Lansdown, with AJ Bell, or through your bank with a Halifax, for example. Okay? So secondly then, if we are considering that it is an investment vehicle, how does it differ to those Hargreaves Lansdown and AJ Bell? Well, we then got to take a look at what the tax benefits are of an Assurance Vie. So if you come from the UK or you come from other countries such as Australia and you have an investment account, what you will find that when you arrive here in France and become fiscally resident, tax efficient products that works back in your home country in the UK, such as ISAs, individual savings account, where they are tax free, are no longer tax free from the French point of view. France does not recognize this, and why would they? It is not a product that they created, it is a foreign nation's product. So therefore, you come to here in France, all of a sudden, you now need to start paying taxes on your investments held in your UK ISA. What we need to understand is what your obligations are currently, and how does the Assurance Vie help mitigate some of those liabilities and responsibilities. So first off, let's take a look at a simple investment. You have a basket of shares. Well, first off, if those shares pay a dividend, then you need to be declaring those payments as soon as you receive them, certainly by the following month, and then you pay your taxes accordingly on your annual return. You don't get a tax-free break, I'm afraid to say. Let's take a look at a simple investment fund. Well, most investment funds will give you a choice of accumulation funds or distribution funds. If you are holding distribution funds, it means you are receiving a form of dividend called distribution. And again, if you're getting that through your ISA, sure, from the UK it's tax-free. Unfortunately, from France it will not be, and you pay tax. And then lastly, if you are selling your shares, selling your investment funds, even if it's to sell a small part just so you can cover fees and running costs of your existing platform, unfortunately, if you are locking in significant gains or some gains, then you will have reporting and tax liabilities as and when you sell them. Now, what are these taxes and liabilities? Well, you will have a fixed income tax as well as the French social charge. Put the two together, we're talking about around about 30%. Now, these are okay, all well and good if you're using it regularly as income, but nonetheless, they can be very cumbersome and you are ordinarily paying more taxes than potentially you can do something different. So, where does an Assurance Vie help in this regard? How does it help? Well, number one, you're using your Assurance Vie as the investment vehicle, the wrapper. When you receive dividends or distributions from the assets that you are invested in, within the Assurance Vie itself, there is no reporting requirement and there is no tax payable on those dividends and distribution within the portfolio. Secondly, when you come to sell, of course, an Assurance Vie contract has charges, no different to your investment platform. When you sell, or if you want to sell because you've had enough of one asset and want to reinvest in another asset, within the Assurance Vie, well, guess what? No reporting requirements and no taxes due either. So all of a sudden, if you are focused on medium to long-term growth with a view to then provide future income, using an Assurance Vie to do all of those investments under one roof or within one account makes it a far more efficient way for you to grow your money. Efficiency from administration and efficiency from taxes payable. Now, having done this, having been in this profession for over a decade, I do hear a number of people saying, well, an investment platform is usually cheaper than an Assurance Vie contract. Well, guess what? In a number of cases, you will be correct, but in most cases, the costs have been coming down for a number of years. And in actual fact, having an Assurance Vie contract can just cost the same as your investment platform that your advisor looks after for you in the UK. And therefore, for the same price, you end up on achieving maximum efficiency from both administration and taxation. Of course, you do have to realize that you need to discuss these matters with your financial advisor, and it's only the really good, reputable advisors who have your interest at heart that will be able to provide the most appropriate Assurance Vie product for you. So far, we've talked about the tax efficiency on investing your money and using the Assurance Vie as a way to keep all your assets within one contract. Let's talk about the actual other significant long-term benefits of an Assurance Vie. So within France, I'm sure you're fully aware that the succession situation is very Napoleonic. Sure, if you are how shall I put this, a straightforward family, husband, wife, 2 children, then actually that suits you just fine having those Napoleonic rules of succession. But what if you're a bit more complicated, or you are simple, but you wish to be able to nominate beneficiaries as well as designate percentages that are different? Well, this is where the Assurance Vie contract is very, very important. Being a life assurance contract, you can certainly set it up initially in joint names, which simply means that husband, wife, 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 husband, husband, they can transfer assets to each other upon the demise of the first policyholder with very, very, very little fuss. In most cases, simple show of the death certificate and we're done. So that provides continuity of being able to look after those money and, more importantly, accessing those funds should you need it for funeral costs and other costs. Now, in the event of death of both policyholders, well, what happens? Well, first off, I told you that you can nominate your beneficiaries. Your children, your nieces, nephews, brothers, best friend. It's brilliant. You can physically nominate names and percentages on this. But in France, as you know, it's not the estate that is liable for the taxation. It is the individual beneficiaries that are liable to pay French succession tax if you are receiving assets from France. So with an assurance fee, why do people use them to help them with succession? Simply put, if you have an assurance fee contract that was established before if you have an assurance fee contract and you established this prior to your 70th birthday and all the money was invested prior to your 70th birthday, then the beneficiaries receiving the proceeds, individually they have an allowance of €152,500 before they pay any tax. Anything above that, they pay a flat tax of 20%. Just put a simple example in place. You have 2 children, and in the event of at the point of your death, the value of the assurance fee was €400,000. You decide that your 2 children are simply going to split this 50-50. Done. Well, each of your beneficiary has this €152,500. That simply means the excess is €47,500, and therefore your beneficiary pays 20% on the €47,500. But the best thing about this is the money is given to them already, so they can use that money to pay that liability instead of having to find money from other sources to pay that tax bill. So that's a great way for your long-term succession plan to be able to nominate and for your beneficiaries to receive a significant allowance individually when receiving money from an assurance fee contract. Now, I know what you're saying, Paul, what if I'm already over 70? What happens then? Well, things are a little bit different. If you invest money once you've already reached 70, then when you pass away, the first €30,500 of what you've invested is tax-free. The balance of that capital you invested is then distributed to, say, your 2 children in this case, and they will be liable to pay standard French succession tax. Of course, it depends if they breach the allowance or not. And then it's done at a scaling rate. There is good news for those who do invest money once they're 70 and over. So I said to you, the first $30,500 is tax-free. The remaining capital is taxable, but not the growth. The growth remains not subject to French succession tax on distribution in the event of your demise. So let's put a working example together. You're 71 years of age, you've come into some money, you've got a couple of $100,000. You invest that money into an Assurance Vie because first and foremost, it's a great way to invest one's money. It's a great platform to have. 10 years later, 20 years later, you pass away. So what happens? Well, the first $30,500 of that $200,000 capital you invested is tax-free. So therefore, the remaining €169,500 is distributed, and your beneficiary will pay standard French succession tax. But let's say that 200 grand had grown to 400,000 though. So the additional 200,000 that's grown to, that will not be subject to French succession tax. So again, a great way to use even if you are already beyond the age of 70. So far, we've covered the benefits of using the Assurance Vie as an investment vehicle. Great way to grow money, tax deference, so it's tax-free on dividends, distributions, tax-free when you sell those assets. We then talked about the succession side, simple spousal transfer, extremely efficient. We talked about the beneficiaries in the event of your demise. Pre-70, those beneficiaries have €152,500 each. Post-70, it's not the beneficiary this time, only the first $30,500 of the capital invested post-70 is tax-free. The remaining amount of capital only is then subject to French succession tax by those individual beneficiaries. But of course, any growth does not get taxed by French succession tax. There is one very important thing we've not covered, and this is about, okay, Paul, we've made our money, what about income? Now, surely you've got to pay tax at some point, and you'll be right, you will pay tax at some point, and that's when you take income or ad hoc withdrawals. So let's take a look at this. Being an Assurance Vie contract, they operate a proportionate taxation system when you come to make withdrawals or when you make the odd withdrawals for lump sums, all treated the same. So how does it work? Well, a simple example, you invest 100,000, it's now today worth €150,000. You give me a call and say, look, Paul, as my advisor, we want to withdraw €9,000, please. Okay, no problem. We make the withdrawal. The next step is to consider what tax to pay. Well, we've just determined that 100,000 is now worth 150. Therefore, 50,000 represents 1/3 of the whole value of the Assurance Vie. You take €9,000 out. We now know the gain represents 1/3, and is that same math that is applied to withdraw. So 1/3 of 9,000 is of course 3,000, and therefore it's that 3,000 that is taxed. Okay, and the taxes in France, of course, for Assurance Vies is a fixed income tax of 12.8% and the full social charge of 17.2%. Now, not to go in too deep, but there are circumstances where the full 17.2 social charge may not apply. Okay? So therefore, in this case, you pay 30% in taxes, which of course is equivalent to £900. Sorry, €900. You take out €9,000, a third is the gain, you pay 30% tax, so you pay 900. Therefore, the effective rate of tax in this example is 10%. Fabulous. Now, with Assurance Vies, the longer you hold it for, the cheaper it becomes from a tax standpoint. What do I mean? Well, years 1 to 8, that fixed rate income tax of 12.8 actually reduces to 7.5 once you've completed a full 8 years on the contract. So it's a great way to actually use it as an income vehicle. Super within years 1 to 8 anyway, but even more super duper from year 9 onwards. The reduction to 7.5% from year 9 only applies to the first 150,000 euro of capital invested. So for the larger clients, you don't get that reduction, it stays at 12.8. Now there is an added bonus here for those who've had contracts for older than 8 years. Well, that is a tax-free allowance you get. So from year 9 onwards, you can actually individually have an allowance of 4,600 euro a year, and this will exempt you from the Assurance Vie's fixed income tax. If you happen to do a joint return or the policies in joint names, you can use 2 allowances in this case, so therefore 4,900 euro a year. So it's such a great product to use, not always the right product for clients. That's why you need expert advice. The very last thing I want to cover off in today's in-depth look at Assurance Vie is the different providers and the location. So being in the EU, of course, being a French product, you'll be able to use, or the banks that you bank with, Aviva Life Assurance, for example, in France, Zurich in France, and a number of them, they will provide assurance fees. Also, you have jurisdictions like Luxembourg, Ireland, that also provide international assurance fee contracts fully compliant in France. For those who may not know, some of the names of the big players are the likes of One Life, Quilter Ireland, Prudential International, Lombard, Swiss Life. So they provide fully compliant structures for those living in France. But the important question is, which jurisdiction one should be using? Well, again, this is really down to proper financial planning and understanding your needs. The difference between a French-based assurance fee and an internationally based one are actually very, very clear. In France, you'll only be offered a euro currency assurance fee. Luxembourg and Ireland, choice of currencies: sterling, euro, US dollar, Swiss francs, and in some cases, a few others. Next difference is the investable assets. So this is what we can actually put into the assurance fee. In France, they tend to wrap up these assurance fees and simply go, here you go, low risk, medium risk, high risk. There's very little choice within the French contracts. However, the international ones, you have what we call an open architecture design. Through your advisor, they can recommend any investments, any stocks and shares, and so on and so on. So the list is endless. Now, the third key difference is, of course, I guess the language. Obviously, the French contracts are only in French, whereas the international ones is available in English. Now, that sometimes won't matter because you want to learn, but having dealt with many, many expats, I find it very, very important to be able to offer choices to my clients. The other key difference, I guess, is the way the charges work on these contracts. So with French one, they tend to wrap it all up. You might pay a small fee to set it up, you might not. For those that don't pay a small fee to set it up, then you tend to pay a higher running cost. But they don't tend to break those costs down. It's all typically wrapped up as one price, which is great for you to understand, but it can be quite expensive. The international one, again, can be quite expensive, but we do have to break down all the individual costs to look. But actually, when we look at the expenses, it's really no different on a grand scheme of things to what you might be used to coming from the UK or other parts of the world, where you have a fund platform, you have your advisor looking after you, and off you go. So you will find these are relatively comparable, okay? And I'd like to throw in one broad statement, having done this for the last 10, 11 years. I've yet to see a locally based assurance fee by the likes of Zurich and Aviva outperform the international ones that I've advised for my clients. I've yet to see this in the last 10, 11 years. And this is really, a lot of it is going to be down to active management, but more importantly, the power of being able to choose from a larger pool of investments, whereas you don't get that with the local products. So I think we've come to an end for today. Thank you for bearing with me. It's a longer video than usual. Hopefully you found this very informative, but of course, very importantly is to speak to your advisor, speak to me if you don't have an advisor. Thank you for continuing to support my channel and my various social media platforms. Do share these videos, the links with your friends, your colleagues, your family who are living in France or thinking about moving to France. That's very important. If you've got those in the UK and they're thinking about moving to France, then do share the video with them. So thank you very much for watching and listening. Have a lovely Friday and have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you all next week. Bye-bye.